Hello, Remington here, your host of the DeeperEnergy podcast. Today, my guests are Harold Dubitsky and Joe Fletcher. Harold Dubitsky is the president of ACT, which stands for Advanced Coaches Training Incorporated. It specializes in projects and training in addiction in low-income, high-risk situations, and he is also the author of 4 books, 2 of which dive into the spirituality of America's indigenous people, the first one being Native Spirituality in Prisons, which is in the Encyclopedia of Prisons and Correctional Facilities. And the second one is Alita's Sacred Journey. In Harry's own words, he said, "Some have read the book because they liked what I have said, either professionally or socially. In the end, I wrote this book to share a mystical journey with Alita, one which will begin to reveal the magic of wisdom of life as I understood it at the moment I wrote these passages." His other 2 books, Evolution of Addiction Recovery and Evolution of Addiction Recovery Reopened, obviously deal with addiction, but with a different approach. He writes, "Let's look at an easier and more hopeful direction to uncovering the missing link to our happiness and contentment. The next step in the evolution of addiction recovery," he says, this book points to the innate wisdom and health in all human beings while examining and comparing other well-known treatment methods and indigenous ceremony, which is interesting. He talks about the 3 principles of mind, consciousness, and thought, which was uncovered by his mentor, Sydney Banks. So Harry and Joe are part of a fellowship they've created for helping people in need. Check out their website and YouTube channel linked in the show notes. Also, before I begin, I just want to mention that this podcast is separate from my controlling and management roles at my wife's pharmacy. It is, however, part of my desire and effort to bring high-quality information about health, religion, science, and the related tools for navigating these topics to you, the listener. For the last year or so, Eric and I have been figuring out how to run a weekly podcast with new and interesting guests while maintaining above average production quality. And to be honest, I underestimated the time such an endeavor required. In order for us to not only continue down this path, but to create an even better show for you guys, I am humbly asking you for your support. The best way to support this podcast is to check out our website and go to the Contribute What You Think link via PayPal, or visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/DeeperEnergy. I really, truly want to thank you for being part of what we're trying to do here. So without any further ado, I present to you my conversation with Harold Dubitsky and Joe Fletcher. All right. So today we have Joe Fletcher, and I have to think about how to pronounce your name correctly. Harry Dubitsky?
Close enough.
Okay.
Close enough. Pretty good. Pretty good.
You guys can try my name. I took my wife's name, Spletstuser.
So yeah, well, I'm going to call you Remington.
Yeah, Remington works for me. Very good.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for coming on. We have a little bit of a time difference. I just realized that Harry's in Canada on the West Coast, so he's at 12 in the morning here. Not bad. And Joe, you are in the UK?
That's right, yeah.
Right on. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. I was checking you guys out. I found this website, the Advanced Coaches Training website, the pursuit of truth regarding mental health. Where do you guys want to start? We have the idea of the books that you've written. I think, Harry, that was interesting what you just said about the before we got online, about the 4 out of the 4 books that you've written, 2 were in the addiction field, and that field doesn't really want to change, you said. And then the other 2 in mental health area, it feels like the mental health.
Well, actually, the other 2 are about the indigenous people, my experiences with the indigenous or Native American Indian people. So first of all, I'm the lead coach of the Mental Health Transformations Group. I have a company called ACT Training, or Advanced Coaches Training, and I have clients all over the world on every continent. And I look for projects where people want to have a spiritual, psychological change. So the group is based on the 3 principles as uncovered by Sid Banks, and it's a spiritual psychology. So everything that I deal with deals with a spiritual psychology. And I'm going to define for you, Remington, what spiritual is and what psychology is. So you'll see what we're talking about. Spiritual is simply everything is beautiful. You're looking at everything from a pure oneness. You're experiencing the beauty of life, and you're seeing the beauty of life. And that's primarily what the approach that I use. And psychology deals with the ups and downs of being a human being and human thinking. So you have these two dichotomies that the world does not understand how to bring together: the spiritual side and the psychological side. And what's different about this spiritual psychology is that we're not trying to fix people. We're in fact saying, Remington, everybody is already fixed. You're born perfect. You have a soul. You have a spirit. If you're a psychologist, you say you're born with mental health. And then you learn stuff, good stuff and bad stuff.
Yeah.
And the world in its present form of psychology is kind of in the Stone Ages. Everybody thinks they know what they're talking about, and they haven't a clue what they're doing. They're lost. And you're going to somebody who's lost. And so the best thing they can do is give you a bunch of drugs. And then they say, oh, I have side effects. They say, well, but the effects, the positive effect supersedes the side effects that you're experiencing. Now, I come along and I've worked in the addiction field. So one of the things I saw, what works with AA, Remington, it has positive and negative. And you really have to understand that they have a whooping 5% success rate. So you know they're really powerfully unsuccessful. Yet everybody, the brand, the sales, the promotion this is where you're going to get your answer. Whooping 5%. You can wipe your bum with toilet paper and get 5%. So, that's how impressed I am. But they have a wonderful fellowship, incredible fellowship. They haven't changed hardly an inch from 1935 to now. The only difference was that in 1970, the UN voted that alcoholism is a disease. Right. Now, before that, they threw everybody in jail. So this was a breakthrough in the right direction, that they had to have some treatment. But the problem is it's not a disease at all. It's just a bad habit of thinking, and you get caught up in it, in trying to feel good. So, but the fellowship has been phenomenal. Our group has that. It's a closed group of 6 people. We have phenomenal fellowship. We're all a team helping each other. But what we're not doing is we have also absolute answers to the weakness of AA and psychotherapy. The weakness of AA, quite simply, it's not a disease. They say it's absolutely a disease. And of course, as long as you believe it's a disease, if you believe you were the ugliest man in the world, Remington, and I see you right now, and you may be the second ugliest man in the world, but not the ugliest man in the world, you would start to believe it, like a label.
Right.
I was helping my daughter in her grade 2 class, and I'm at the break, when the teachers get together, I was shocked. They all have agreed on the label of the kid. The only problem is I didn't see the label. There wasn't that. They were wrong, but they all agreed that that was wrong with the kid.
Yeah.
And guess how the kid felt? He started to agree with them.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because they were all throwing it at him. And so I came along and I wasn't doing any of it. And the kid didn't have any of those symptoms. So you throw out an image. If the student or the client buys it, that's what they become. Because thought creates That's one of the most important things for you to understand on today's talk.
Okay.
Thought creates. If you think it, you feel it.
Yeah.
And if you feel it, it becomes a reality that you live. So we're not talking that alcoholism or mental health is a disease. We're talking about it that you never were broken.
Yeah, because the disease puts it in this, it takes the responsibility away a little bit, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And of course you're hurting, so
Yeah.
you're going for help and you want some help. But the problem is if you go, it's like a dog that barks up the wrong tree is not much of a hunter.
Yeah.
And the trouble is people are suffering needlessly and they're going to somebody innocently. They're not, they're good people, but they've been trained in an obsolete paradigm. And the obsolete paradigm is in psychotherapy is you have to go into the past and fix the past so that you can live in the present happily. Bullshit. That's what that is.
Yeah.
I know that sounds shocking, scandalous. And since they don't know what they're talking about, they throw drugs. The pharmaceutical industry is exploding with profit. The people, I'm 75, and the doctors say, well, what drugs are you on? I says, well, I'm not on any drugs. What? It's impossible. Nobody's not on any drugs. See,
Yeah, I mean,
everybody's caught up. I got a little boo-boo. I got to have a drug for it.
yeah, I mean, you're doing like, I was just amazed. It's midnight and you're for 75. It's just weird. You don't usually have this idea of someone, a 75-year-old, just, you're moving, you're grooving. There's something you're doing right. That's something I guess it's off topic a little bit, but
But
I guess,
it's the energy.
yeah.
You see, we're here, the three of us. It looks like I'm talking, right? But it's not. It's our energy. That's what energizes you. If you don't think so much,
Yeah.
you don't burn out on stress.
Yeah,
There's only
thinking.
one thing that makes people tired and old. I mean, there are, you over exercise or stuff, but primarily you're stressed out. You're thinking about negative stuff. And COVID. Oh,
Oh yeah, that's the worst. Yeah.
yeah. And on it goes. People have lost their way because they're thinking negatively. What is it? Is this a 12 o'clock at midnight, or is this a fun thing to do? Which one?
Right. Yeah. That was your response. You're like, I'm looking forward to it. I'm like, all right, let's do this. See, I even had like a bad conscience. I'm like, oh gosh, I didn't realize. But that's something that I wanted to ask you about too, because this idea that you touched on about thought creates. And I was listening to something that really hit me, and I've tried it myself. I have to probably stay on a little more, but this thing saying, I am enough. I heard that somewhere. And this woman was talking about she said that to her daughter, like her daughter came in and was having a hard day or whatever. And we have all these expectations on our children, and we have these labels for our children. And they just automatically, like, especially until they're, they hit puberty, before they get to that phase where they want to say, okay, I have to kind of look out for myself a little bit here. But before that, everything I say is just, even if they might fight it in the moment, internally, they take my perspective of them, they take it on as their own perspective of themselves. And I said this to my son the other day. He's 9, and we were kind of training him to get up in the morning and go to school and this whole thing. You can just see him fight. His natural clock it's too early in the morning. He doesn't, this whole system, I know, is not really the right way for our adolescents to get up at 6 a.m. and go to school. Then brains aren't even online until they're out of school at like 12 in the afternoon, or 1 in the afternoon. So it's like, I know this, but I still have to fit him into this cog system that we still have. And I'm like, and I got down on one knee to his eye level and I said, Tristan, you're enough. And it was amazing just to see him like go, like he was like, oh God, that's nice that he said that, like internally, he didn't really know what I meant, like on the words themselves, but I think like something that struck a string. Like, what do you think about that? Is that me just showing him that I completely accept him for who he is? Maybe it's something like that. It was
Well,
really powerful.
you're flowing into positive feelings. See,
Yeah.
your job is to share positive feelings with your son. The parents who criticize their parents or their kids or put too much discipline on their kids, they are demoralizing them or narrowing their perspectives or forcing them into their own image. They aren't your image.
Yeah.
They are a unique individual. If I tried to force Joe into becoming like I think he should be, I can guarantee you that would be like trying to have a shark in a bathtub type of thing. It's no chance in the world that can work out. So how would you say about that, Joe, just to bring you into the conversation?
Yeah.
Joe is a member of the mental health transformation group and is also the communications manager. And he was the contact person with Remington. And Joe has provided a lot of energy to our group. A lot of what you have been impressed with is because Joe became a member, and it's a closed group. We're not looking for 1 million people. We're looking for living testimony to the fact that mental health scenarios, illnesses can be a thing of the past, and not just coping with it, Remington. I'm talking about brand new eyes, unlimited potential. I'm talking about the same thing you want for your son when he wakes up. Yeah. You want him to experience his unlimited potential. You don't want him to make a lot of money. You want him to experience his passions and his dreams and I can tell you, I have 3 kids. I only want one thing for my kids: happy. I just want them happy. If they're happy, I don't care what they're doing. Yeah. And because they're happy, they're naturally doing well. Yeah. And when there's problems, life brings the solution, unless you think too much.
Thinking and then being attached. I would like to hear from Joe too. I just maybe we can jump to Joe on where does mindfulness fit in here? Because mindfulness is just thrown around, right? It's just like this word that we Westerners use for meditation and this whole idea of dualism. And I've dove into that myself in an attempt to appraise my own mental health in a sense, and then see where am I at with that. And the first thing I noticed was that I'm attached to like every thought that comes in my brain, and like I totally think it's me. And this is like such an eye-opening experience to be like, oh wait, these are just like things coming in, and maybe I should just kind of pull back and watch this conveyor belt of all these ideas and just not identify with every single train of thought that, and just and once that was opened, I was like, God. And then it's a constant thing. Like, it doesn't matter. I can catch myself every 4 seconds doing the same thing. And I can imagine it just be, you hear of these yogis sitting for 40,000 hours and they still are caught up in this thought train. So it just seems like there seems like there's a lot of potential there. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. I mean, the way I see it is like, let's look at nature as well and how we relate to nature, and seeing that nature's built up of patterns, and seeing that actually our thoughts are built up of patterns as well. And then we get trapped in one of them patterns and then it keeps swirling round. And kind of when they talk about mindfulness and that, it's all getting it back into the present. And when you're kind of seeing that, I kind of see the ego mind or the personal mind as like the little trickster, and it's always pulling little tricks on you all the time. And then when you identify that as being you, that's when you kind of start judging. But when you see actually that's not you, that's just a pattern that's kind of playing around in your mind. And so then rather than seeing it as being something you have to fight or an enemy, you kind of have this ego mind that kind of gets out of control and kind of gets a bit wild. And it feels like it becomes your master. And the way I kind of conceived it was like, I like to kind of see it was like a wild stallion. And the stallion, when you see a cowboy with a stallion and you see him, the stallion's kind of fighting that. And if the cowboy goes in with willfulness and anger and hate and that, the stallion will fight back like the ego does. And then you're just causing more and more problems. But when you actually show compassion, that this is really like a small child that is frightened and fighting, and it's trying to fight for you, and it's kind of misguided, and you show the compassion for that and see the love for that, that's what it's doing. It's not there to hurt you or damage you. It's just lost. And then if you can feel the compassion and actually let it come back, and you're trying to get back into harmony, because we get into disharmony with our mind and our body, and everything kind of gets into like this massive fight with itself, almost like, and that's when we start to suffer. And then that's like when you're with the group and that, when you hear people talk the truth, that lifts you up. And that, whereas kind of you go to groups and people talk about problems, and then it kind of, I might feel problem before, and before you talk about it, and it kind of makes it worse. And it's like, I kind of feel like you get stuck in sinking mud, and you go and say, isn't that sinking mud terrible? And, oh, how terrible that, oh, poor you stuck in the sinking mud and that. Whereas when you hear groups talking truth, it's like, well, you can just climb out of the sinking mud again and then be okay. And so it's seeing that it's always in the present, and all of it, when you just let the thoughts go, you bring yourself back to the present again. And then you see that's who you truly are. The present moment is who you truly are, in the quietness and past. And the rest of it is just kind of a little pattern that's playing in your head and noise that's there. But you don't have to attach to that noise or believe that noise to be you, and just see it as a temporary passing noise that goes again.
Okay, that's good, Joe. So I just want to read something from my book. It's chapter 30, The Creative Reality of Thought. This is from our teacher, Sid Banks, he was my teacher. And you can't possibly find a secret to human behavior without walking on the spiritual side of life. So the answer to your question, Remington, is, where is that answer? Like, you know the answer within yourself, but you have to go to the spiritual side of life to see how that works on the human side. If you're just dealing with the human side, guess what happens? You get caught up in your intellect and what Joe is talking about, your ego and so on. So all those definitions, all those things that you're trying to do are actually taking you away from this fact that you know that quiet feeling inside of you is where the answer is. And in that spot, you'll see the answer to your own question. See, that the world doesn't know that. They keep looking for more information, more pieces to the puzzle. So let me read a little bit, since I'm into my book a little bit here.
Yeah.
Thought is mystical. Thought is lingering energy that creates this moment's feelings, intermingling from the last feeling and flowing to the next feeling. The thought energy is a moving river. When we contaminate the waters with impure thoughts, like the world basically does, pollution occurs. But when we cleanse the water with pure thoughts, clarity occurs. When you understand the role of thought, Remington, you intuitively know where to go. When you don't understand the role of thought, you're a victim of your own thinking.
Yeah. Oh, really? They want to end the meeting? Is it because we have, I'm sorry, is it because we have 3 people in here or what? Oh, then just can we without without stopping the meeting, can we just upgrade the Zoom real quick? I'm sorry, guys. That just,
Yeah, you can upgrade it.
can I do it without having to jump off the call? That'd be cool.
Yeah, you just click upgrade.
Okay. Can you just click upgrade somewhere, buddy? Oh, where is it at?
Yeah, there's a 40-minute time limit.
Yeah. That's
With 3. I didn't realize it wasn't, you were using that.
yeah, it's
We could have done it on my thing where it didn't have that, but that's okay.
yeah, I can do it real quick. Just give me a second, guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure.
I can jump on my computer and do it from here. I think I actually had that on because when the pandemic first started, I was doing it with the family. We're doing like these big, huge Zoom calls with the family. And
Yeah.
I remember doing that, having that subscription. 1 second. Application. You find it? Yeah, upgrade off Pro. Exactly. You got it. Yeah, it's me. No? Exactly. Ba-ba-ba-ra-ba-ba. Yeah, upgrade. Exactly. Give us an upgrade here, Eric. Just do it monthly for me. Yeah, exactly.
With what you're doing, you should have your own room anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Zoom
Yeah.
meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's better.
Yeah, and that way you won't run into this problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I was using another tool too. That was kind of cool. There's a lot of new ones coming out these days that are interesting.
Yeah, there is.
It's okay. Zoom rooms, exactly. So just do monthly, please. No, don't do the room. We're in a meeting right now, right? Yeah, just do the monthly. Exactly. And then click OK. Weiter. Yeah, and then say Weiter. Okay. Yeah. Boop, boop, boop. Akzeptiert. Yes. Great. Thank you. Oh, it's working. It gives me a sense.
Yeah, just go. You have unlimited minutes. Okay,
Woohoo.
good. Okay, so we're ready to rock and roll.
2021. This is the reality now. Make sure that you're upgraded before you start the conference call. Yeah. Okay, so let's bring us back here. So you're talking about start again where you were at the very end there of what your last thought was, so that I can kind of jump back in. Sorry.
I'm not sure because I don't use that part of my mind.
Yeah, you're always in the future. So that was interesting too when you said that, like because I have this tendency to want to go back and uncover these things as a way of, well, I look at it like, well, I'm brave and I'm going to just open up this can of worms and go into that as a way of brute force attacking anything that might be controlling me unknowingly now, and like in my life, that there's like the things that we haven't resolved, the fears that we haven't resolved are driving you, right? This is something that I think is interesting.
Well, we'll let Joe talk about that, but first let me start, Joe, and then talk about the effect fear had on you and how you were able to deal with it, Joe. Stick to the topic though, Joe, please. Don't just jump into your rap type thing. Yeah, it's important, Joe. You stick to the topic. Yeah, and sorry, what was the question again? I've slipped my mind now.
Yeah, well, it was more just that because you mentioned that we don't like to look at the past. Like, it's all about the future, and I see.
Oh, first of all, you're a unique human being. Joe is a unique human being. I am a unique human being. There's not a cookie cutter way that you should approach your life. Your feelings will let you know whether it's right for you or not. They're the barometer the reason you have feelings is to indicate that you must follow your own instincts, your own way of learning, your own way of your own being. And when you don't do that, you get fear. When you separate from the whole, when you separate yourself from being part of God or what we're calling mind, universal mind, when you separate yourself from that, that's when you have suffering.
Yeah.
But when you're following what works for you, you're not suffering. You're feeling, you're into it. It's interesting. Maybe nobody else's way does it that way, but you do it that way.
Right.
It works for you. There's no stress in that. But when you're pretending to do it because you read in a book it's a good idea, then you're a puppet. And there's no power in being a puppet.
Yeah, it's a hard thing though, because like you said, you could be so helpless and you can come across this information and go down that route that's not even helping you, right? And that's the hardest thing about getting out of it, being mentally compromised. You're not really a good person to find the right therapy. You know, it's almost like hopefully I'm just lucky enough to run into you guys or to run into someone that's willing to pick me up where I am.
It's not us. It's you.
But, yeah.
It's you.
But
I want to keep emphasizing.
Yeah.
It's your wisdom. It's what you hear.
Right.
You can have the greatest teacher in the world, and with one student, nothing, nada, and with another student, enlightenment.
Right.
So
what's
obviously,
what's the difference?
The difference is the student.
It's the student, right? It's the person. It's like it's
Yeah.
where.
So I want Joe.
Yeah.
How did you deal with the ups and downs of trying to find your mental health with all the diagnoses you've had, which was all the acute stuff that the world talks about in the mental health field? How did you all of a sudden decipher what was true and what was bullshit?
Yeah, I mean, it was going by the feeling. And whereas before I kind of believed that the diagnosis defined me and there was something wrong with me, like kind of that I had some condition, a label, and because of that condition, I was condemned to that and a kind of slave to that. And then when I saw the role of thought, that I actually was creating my problems from moment to moment by how I was thinking in that moment, that I could see through that then that actually that was kind of a story, or I saw it now. It's almost like being in a dream, that when you're really getting stuck in your head, it's like you're in a nightmare or that, and you can't control that nightmare. But when you realize you're in it and then you wake up to it again, and then you see you don't actually have to believe your thoughts, or you don't have to do what they tell you. You can just see them as the illusion that they are. And when you realize it's that what's causing it, it's not what's happened to you, or it's not a diagnosis you're given. And that actually, when you let that drop away and you go back to the silence, that the silence is who you truly are. And that's when you feel the positive feelings again and the great feelings, and to know that they're always there and that the rest of it's just a covering of it. And then when you see that actually you're not broken, or you're not ill, or you haven't got that, and that actually it's a temporary misconception you have of yourself, or a story you've built of yourself, and that you can see through that again, and then just see who you truly are, that you're truly part of all of it. And then it's just such a big shift, really, that completely changes your world.
And then when Joe came into the group, we nurtured that. You see, he had already had a breakthrough, but he still saw himself as a loser. But when he came into the group, as he started to contribute and started to share, he saw even more. The wisdom deepened what he talked about. So we need life to support us. We can't just say, well, it's better now. We have to prove to ourselves it's better, because we know it's going to have ups and downs. But once he gave up his loser image and, oh, I'm helping people. I like helping people. Oh, I have ideas. We don't need all these psychologists to come on our show. It's good enough with just Harry and Joe. That was a big one for Joe. Oh, let's get these guys and let's do this. It was all bullshit. It was Joe's bullshit. And he dropped it and he saw he didn't need it either. It was just an image.
Yeah, that's I wanted to kind of go
Isn't
back.
that true, Joe?
Yeah, completely. It's kind of giving my power away to other people when I don't realize it's within myself.
There's the secret. If you give your power away to other people who are fools, guess what you're going to get?
And nobody knows better than you, really. Like you said, if you can go back to this original self, it's there. That's when these people talk about enlightenment too, right? They like the best thing I've heard so far is kind of like, what who's saying that I'm already not enlightened? You know, like what is that this thing that I have to reach? It's just reinforcing this dualism. It's just reinforcing the separation from this natural state that we've gotten so far away from just in our society in the last,
That's because of the psychology that's out there,
all
and
this.
the world, what it's throwing out with ambition and jealousy, and it's okay to be lustful, and on it goes. The world is mixed up.
Right. For sure.
And if you want to follow mixed up and become mixed up, follow the world.
Right.
But there's a truth. Mind works a certain way. Thought works a certain way. Thought is a tool. If you don't use the tool properly, let's just say you have an impure thought, Remington. What is that going to create for you?
It's usually it's gonna create a certain amount of either it's going to be a fear or it's going to create some type of reaction. I would say some type of I'm gonna kind of contract. That's what I've noticed.
Okay,
it's a
contraction of a good feeling.
Right.
Now, let's say you see that the thought is impure, and you change the thought to pure. And let's see, this is the bullshit of the world. You know if it's pure or impure. Don't tell me you don't know. If you don't know, you're not conscious. You're so busy in your head with so much bullshit that you can't even tell whether your thought is pure or impure. Shut up for once in a while and start to listen to the vibration, the music of the world.
It's I mean, when you say it, it's like, yeah, but when you get triggered by something, that's exactly the definition of trigger, is that it blindsides you, right? And it's almost like, gosh, if I could just stay on this path of checking myself, at least when I do get triggered, I can catch it somehow, like even if it's 5 minutes later, it's like, it's better than 5 days.
Joke. You see this? You are already catching it, Remington. You see how consciousness works? You're already aware of triggers. You see that? You think it's bad. No, it's good. You are aware that you are being led by your nose, by these triggers, and your consciousness. If you see that that's coming from you rather than an outside in, it's an inside out. That's already the healing.
Yeah.
See, it's automatic. When I went into a higher level of consciousness, 90% of my bad habits dropped away. Not all of them. Don't get me wrong here. No Mr. Perfect here. How of those 90% that dropped away, how many did I work on? How many?
Like, well, none, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
None.
Yeah.
It just dropped away because I got happier and more content.
How did that happen for you? If you, how did that, do you remember how that came about? Do you remember the
Well, of
moment where,
course, yeah. Well, basically, first of all, my teacher, Sidney Banks, was enlightened, and he had an enlightenment experience, and I had had a deep spiritual experience, but I didn't quite know how to relate the spiritual experience to day-to-day life.
Hmm.
I didn't quite understand thought like I'm explaining to you now. So I was like a little bit like a loose cannon. And even though I had a very strong spiritual connection,
Hmm.
I still didn't understand how to live day to day without getting into mental trouble. And my whole life, everything was wrong. I had no money. I had no friends. I had my son and stuff. And I said, the hell with it. I know I'm tired of trying to figure it out and be better. I'm just going to get happy and content.
Hmm.
I just got quiet. And then for 4 years, I got quiet. And then at 69, boom, the, the, the heavens opened up. Projects started pouring in. Everyone's retiring, and I'm just starting.
Yeah.
I think as well, kind of seeing when you say triggers is that kind of always puts the image in that it's the outside that's causing it. But it's kind of like the way I see it then is like you press play on the tape recorder. And so it starts that thought pattern again. And it's saying that actually it's the thought pattern that's causing it. It's not the outside that's triggered you. And so it's not so much willfully trying to catch it. It's seeing it for what it really is. And then you don't have to be afraid of that anymore. And you don't have to let it control you. And so you're not trying to, because I've tried to willfully control my thoughts and willfully, and it's positive, like when they have positive thinking groups, and then it just fights back and you get into more of a battle. And then that's when I kind of get myself into trouble then, rather than kind of just letting it happen and letting it go itself, and then trusting that actually what they call mind in the three principles or the universe will actually bring you back naturally, because that's what nature's always doing. Nature's always bringing everything back to harmony and peacefulness. And so the more we fight it and try and control, and it's the controlling that actually causes more disturbance, whereas the letting go and kind of just letting it happen itself will bring you back naturally there.
And now how do I live? How do I make decisions? Well, primarily 98% of my decisions are made without thinking. I don't want to hear what my thinking is talking about. I just intuitively trust spiritual direction. Yeah. So 98% of my decisions are intuitive, instinctual. I can feel them. And before, if I had a decision, I'd take 2 or 3 weeks to make it. Now I take 2 or 3 seconds. Look at the time I saved. Look at the stress I avoided. And my Geiger counter, or whatever you want to put, your GPS, works that way. The other way didn't work. I always overthought anything. I read the most interesting book. George Bush went into Iraq, and it went through their processes. They were so intellectual and looked at everything for every possibility. There's no way they could see common sense. It was so complicated that the greatest mind in the world couldn't figure out what to do. So of course they made a mistake. Naturally. They blew it, but they overthought it. Are you doing that?
Oh, for sure.
Am I doing that? Is Joe doing that from time to time?
A bit more than time to time.
Yeah, but that's
simplicity, isn't it? Simplicity. You go to the simple.
Yeah, you're not here to be perfect in this human condition world. Stop trying to be perfect. You make lots of mistakes every day. But every day and every moment, you get a second chance. You want to follow a positive feeling or the usual stinky triggered feeling? Which one do you want?
Can we talk about this positivity thing? Because there's something inside me that just kind of, I think I have like a different definition in my mind than you do. Well, I know I do because I have this thing about like I watched this movie Burn After Reading with George Clooney and Brad Pitt, and Brad Pitt played. Do you guys know this movie, Burn
I
After
don't.
Reading? It's something it happened in Washington, and it just kind of showed the chaotic world of humans, and there was just so many random things happening, and the CIA, and it was all in Washington, and you could just see that like the CIA director was just like trying to make sense of out of it, and it was just like, oh god, just close the case because there's just too much random stuff happening. And one of the things was George Clooney was this super positive like guy, right? Like everything he did, he's like the power of positivity. It was like toxic positivity, like he went on this whole thing, and I've been like that myself in my life. I've had this thing where I'm just like positive, just think positive, the power, the what do we call the Anziehungskraft, the law of attraction, right? Like I was into this whole, again, looking outside. I know that this was the wrong train of thought, but the power of attraction, the law of attraction, the idea that if I put out the good vibes and let the universe provide and just kind of let it go, that it will. And I know that there's something there, but I also had this thing where I was kind of afraid to have negative thoughts. Like I was like,
Yeah, you don't want to be like that.
yeah, I didn't like that because it felt like I wasn't really truly being honest. I was kind of just giving myself the positive pump up all the time. And then so anybody that would try and say, like if my wife would be like, well, we got to kind of look at this, and be like, you know what, just focus on the positive, and then it's actually at some point not the reality anymore, right? Because it's the reality of the situation.
It's better, Remington, than just focusing on the negative.
Right.
So that's a step in the right direction, but it isn't the direction. The direction is you have all kinds of thoughts. You must experience the whole gambit of all the thoughts that you have. And then at a certain level of consciousness, they all are teachers. Like everybody, rookies always go, oh, I had a good feeling. I just want that good feeling again, and I lost it. And I'll do anything. I want that good feeling again. And they're so disappointed. Well, they're not understanding the role of thought. When I have a negative thought, if I don't disturb it, just see it, experience it. I don't like it. I have a negative thought. It changes to positive because it shows me something I didn't know. That's basically what a negative thought is. Remington, you thought you knew this, but you don't. And God's saying, well, Remington, bend down again. I'm going to kick you one more time. Right. And Remington says, boy, it's starting to hurt. Yeah. Well, the lesson is if you're going in the wrong direction, isn't that good to know? Or even more importantly, there's something you don't know that's blocking your happiness. Isn't it good that it's a little bit tough and you better earn your way with it? It's beautiful. It's beautiful if it has a lesson in it. It's beautiful if it has a wisdom. And what about this? Isn't it beautiful if it lays out a whole halo of unlimited potential that you were blocked in? Example. All my life going through university and stuff, everybody said you can't write. Well, I believed that, and I was highly mathematical. Well, excuse me, but I've written 4 books. Obviously, I can write.
Yeah.
Something had to happen. It's called an insight. I had to experience an insight that I could write. Joe had to have an insight that he wasn't mentally ill so that he could see, oh, oh, I have all this unlimited potential. Oh, I feel I'm ready to rock and roll. Where before, all I can do is go to bed.
But
Talk
also,
about that, Joe, that moment of insight.
yeah, I mean, I just talk first about you saying about the positivity. I mean, what I found from my experience is kind of the personal mind ego is such a trickster, and it'll pull all these little games on you, and so it'll make you think you can control, and so it'll make you think you can think yourself positively, and actually it's the thing that is causing the negativity is the thing that's trying to solve itself then, and so it's pulling them little games on me, and so it's the sin that actually, as humans, we always feel the need to control, and you see it now with nature, how we try to control nature all the time. When you actually let nature do itself, it heals itself. And it's the same with me, that kind of, it's only in the presence of who we really are. And that's the positivity, and the positive thought is in the now and is in the quietness. And it's not the trying to control. It's the, what you kind of call surrender to it. And then that's when you get the insights. And like I had the insight, I was kind of blaming the outside, and then I realized I was actually projecting my own thoughts onto the world and then blaming people for it. Or like I was doing a course with he was a top psychiatrist in the 3 principles, and I asked him a question, and I was kind of like excited about asking this question, and I thought, oh, his reaction was quite aloof to me and quite off from that, and I was kind of quite disappointed and quite annoyed about that, and I was going to message him about it. And then I watched the video back, and it was completely different reaction to what I thought it was. He was like compassionate and really understanding. And then it was just like, wow, all these times I see people and I think they're having this reaction to me. I'm creating that myself.
Right.
And then I see that actually all my conflicts and everyone's conflicts are created by that. And it's the same with my mental health condition. It's like the way I'm thinking at that moment is what's creating it. It's not something else. And so that is just such a big wow moment for me, that one of them insights. And then you get them all the time, and then they're just like, wow. And it's just like completely shifts your world. And it comes from you, not from something you're taught or something you hear. I mean, that might awaken it within you, and then you know it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I saw it and how it happened for me.
That's interesting. That's a very the way that to be able to go back and look at it and in a different mental state, and then just see that interaction is it's so interesting that our brain can do that, right? And that it can play these tricks on you. Gosh, that's a cool insight. Yeah.
And I'll give you a tip. When this show is over, listen to it again.
Yeah.
This time without your thinking about what you've been thinking about right now, about what's happening.
Yeah.
And
Well, I'm trying to just like, that's the thing. It's just that's also I was going to say, like, we're in our heads right now. Right. Like, so it's just
No,
this.
we're not in our heads. We're slipping out of being in our heads.
That's the idea, right? It feels like at a certain point too, I feel like in these conversations that I have, there's also like a mental cohesion that kind of happens at around 40 minutes. It feels like it's where everyone's kind of just on this vibe, and there's a certain amount of, I don't know, like our brains kind of just, they sync, even, which is like I never really thought it would work in this type of situation where I'm looking at you guys on my TV here, where I thought, well, it has to be in person, and I'm sure in person that syncing happens too, but there's also distractions there and stuff, but yeah.
So I call it the us energy. When the us energy is here, which it always is, by the way, it's just that we slip in and out of consciousness of it.
Yeah, right.
It's always here. I mean, you're an energy force. Joe's an energy force. I am. So it's all energy. But we're not. But when that us energy happens, it doesn't matter who's talking. It's just wisdom. It's just the three of us are sharing something. One person may say, I have a problem. The next person may answer it, and then the third person may then add something to it. The person who added something to it has been facilitated by the person who asked the question. It's a flowing river. It's not my world and my perception. That's where people have lost their way, is because they got so caught up in the materialism that they thought they had to have, and they gave up their happiness. Divorces are at the highest rate, homeless is at the highest rate, mental illness is definitely at the highest rate. Ooh, but the standard of living is growing and growing and growing. But people can't get their heads around the fact that they're being led by, they've been conditioned rather than original, rather than creative, rather than instinctual. The connection we have to nature is not to be taken irrelevantly. It is a very important connection. We will destroy the planet. Don't tell me we won't. We will just kill all the people in the world if the level of consciousness does not rise. And economically, which the world worships as the greatest religion in the world, will destroy itself. It's inevitable unless we start to come together as global beings. We are one global energy ball. You can pretend all you want, and you're wrong. And if you're going to be wrong, it's the same as a little kid who thinks he can walk across the street and not worry about the cars. Sooner or later, the car is going to run over the kid. And the same thing with adults. Only trouble is adults are a lot stupider than kids. That's the problem. The ego that Joe mentioned is bigger. The kids are much more fluid. They drop bad habits and everything. Of course, they learn the bad habits from the parents.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, you're messing up your kid.
Yeah.
But you're also teaching your kid about love, and you're sensitive. So it turns out you only need one quality to grow spiritually. You have to care. Something beyond yourself.
Yeah.
You have to care. That's why you're doing this show. Yeah, you mentioned before, well, you should do this to make more money, etc., etc. But you care. That's why you're doing this. And it makes you feel good to help in your own little way. But it's not a little way. A little bit of love is still love. Rumi said, I love this quote, "You are not a drop in the ocean, but an ocean in the drop." The whole ocean in one drop of love, one piece of love that you are sharing, Remington, can change the whole world.
That's nice.
I experienced it firsthand, the kind of what Harry was saying about with the thoughts and that. And I was in a webinar and this idea came into my head talking about like getting stuck in vines. And I was about to talk about it. And then someone else spoke first and they said virtually exactly the same thing that I thought I was going to say. And I actually read quite a cool study I read the other day, and they actually did brain scans of some people who were together and in sync with each other. And they found that actually their brain scans were exactly in sync with each other, their brain patterns. So it kind of then really hit me then that actually we do get in sync with each other beyond kind of our own personal, when with the same with the group, when we're in a communion with each other and we all see truth and that, we actually feel the connection with each other. And so you can actually feel it, and you can feel the connection with nature as well. I mean, it's a feeling you get within yourself.
When you're not thinking. And here's the other thing about thinking. Say you have a problem and you stop thinking about it. Do you have a problem?
Yeah. How many problems have I never had, right? Like that.
Yeah, that's Mark Twain said that.
Yeah.
That's a quote from Mark Twain.
Fantastic.
I've had a lot of trouble, but luckily for me, most of them weren't true.
Yeah, none of them came true, right? All these problems
they weren't true. They weren't true. They were man-made, illusionary concepts. How many times have you're married now, but let's put you back when you're going out with this girl and you like her, and all of a sudden something, and you're thinking, oh, it's not working out, and you got this whole thing, and you got to talk to her, and and she comes in with a nice feeling, and you realize it was all bullshit.
Right.
That's us.
Yeah.
We're full of bullshit.
No.
Joe is full of bullshit. How do I know that? How do I know that? Because Harry is full of bullshit. That's how I know Joe's full of bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't pretend. I don't pretend. But
Yeah.
but I also know that Joe is pure love inside of him. He has pure understanding inside of himself. And he cares. And that caring is why we're on the show. We're trying to tell people you don't have to suffer needlessly. We understand life is a contact sport. It is.
It is.
Someone punches me in the nose, it bleeds. I understand that. But most of the suffering you have is a mental apparition that you have created with that because you don't understand the role of thought. If you think it, you have to feel it. Could I tell you a spiritual experience I had about thought?
Yeah, please share.
Okay. So I've had this big spiritual experience about oneness. So I've got the big piece of the puzzle, but I don't got this thought stuff. And I'm up on the top of the mountain with Sydney Banks, my enlightened teacher. And he says to me, go ahead, ask me any questions. And so I ask him about 10 questions, all spiritually based, because I don't give a poop about the material stuff. I am bored with that. You talk to me about that, I go to sleep. I know you mostly talk about that, but that's not me. So I asked him 10 spiritual, every question he answers with, and it's all one. I go, gee, this is interesting. Someone asked me a question, I just answer their question, but I don't tell them it's all one. And then on the 10th question, and I don't remember this question, I saw, now this is a mystical experience. I'm very mystical because, of course, I worked a lot with the indigenous people. And the reason I worked with the indigenous people is they're a lot more mystical than you stupid white people who have got portals blocked up like you, the yin yang, and you don't know what you're talking about, but you rule everything and all the money. So I saw, I'm not talking about an image, a false image, or I physically saw thought leave my mouth. I'm on the top of a cliff, leave my mouth and go into the abyss and boomerang back into me as a feeling. And I went, holy shoot, who's creating all my experiences? I thought it was like, before I thought it was like karma. I had bad thoughts, I did a stupid thing. And then in another life or later in the life, it would come back to haunt me.
Yeah.
But this was like instant karma. You have a thought, that's a feeling. They're connected.
Yeah.
You cannot have a thought without a feeling. Every feeling that you have, Remington, comes from thought. You are spiritually just thought. That's all you are. With your body's not who you are. It's not even going to be around in 35, 55 years. It's going to be sawdust. You're not your body. So who are you? You are thought. And you say, oh no, that God created me. Yes, on one level, God created you. God is a thought. There is no God. There is universal thought, creating personal thought. And you interpret it any way you want. I am connected to God. I'm not connected to God. Oh no, I don't like the word God. Let's use Allah. Oh, I don't, we call, in psychology, they call it mind. Well, I don't like that word, but that's a principle that we talk about. The principle, what's mind? a psychological word for God. Oh, big difference, you know. So I use the word spirit because I like indigenous, but it's the same stuff. It's all the same stuff. You could use energy. Sydney Banks, this enlightened man with a grade 9 education at the end of his life, met with all the leading physicists in the world, or in North America, not the world. And he started to talk and say, life is spiritual. They said, oh, you can't talk about that with us. We're physicists, we're scientists. He says, well, what can I say? He said, energy. Oh, life is energy. Not life is spiritual, life is energy. Of course, the indigenous couldn't use the word energy because they were around way before energy was a known product. So they had to come up with a word. But the physicists deal with energy. And don't tell me your energy is not connected to my energy. Your energy does not affect my energy. Don't tell me that we are separate from everybody else. And yet on one level we are. That's the irony of life. We have to connect spiritual and psychology, not as two separate units. One. They're both the same thing. Do you know what you are? You're just energy in disguise. The disguise called Remington.
Yeah, just that labeling, you know, this name that you get this name, and it's like my birthday's tomorrow, and it's like every time around my birthday, I'm like, oh God, here it goes. You know, everyone's gonna call me and say happy birthday, and it's just this whole thing, and I say to myself every year, like, who cares? You know, like, why do we celebrate the fact that like we went around the sun one more time, or that this is my 38th time around the sun? You know, I was telling that to my son on his birthday, and he's like looking at me like, don't ruin my life right now, Daddy. Like, these are the most important days of my life. Like my birthday and everything leading up to it, it's all about me, and it's very egocentric. And
well, it has a value because that is true. You must first here's your path. First, you have to be selfish, Remington. You have to realize you're God. You have to realize the power of who you are, your soul, your mental health, whatever word you want to use, your innate wisdom, whatever word, your instinctive, intuitive mind, whatever bullshit word you want to use.
Right.
You can use them all. I use them all, and they're all useless. Because they're just an echo of the truth. They're not, they're just an image.
Just a label. Yeah.
Just a label.
Yeah.
And so first you have to be selfish. You have to get it for yourself. And then once you get it for yourself, to complete the circle, because everything in the indigenous world is a circle. What is a circle the symbol of? God. Okay. Oh, no. Creator. Creator. Great spirit. Excuse me. You know, oh, heaven forbid. And then once you have that feeling, you have to share it. And of course, to share it, you got to get out of your head. You got to stop being selfish, and you have to help. By sharing the truth, sharing a good feeling, guess what happens? You get a good feeling. That's what happened to Joe. He started sharing, and he started noticing he was having a good time. Right, Joe?
Yeah, it's kind of gives me, to me, what karma means to me is you get back what you give. So if you give out a good feeling, you get back a good feeling. If you judge and you give out negativity, you get that back and you feel that.
So simple. So start planting positive feelings. All the people with mental health, addiction, etc., bummed out, stressed out, lower mood, overeating, anxiety, etc. Anxiety. Give me a break. I had a lady come to me for anxiety. I thought, well, Well, that should take about 5 minutes to help her, fix her totally. But she wanted 10 sessions, okay. And she wanted to pay me a lot of money. Okay. Okay. Put it in the bank. So after the second session, I said to her, well, how are you doing? She says, oh, I had the greatest week. It was just fantastic. Well, I says, isn't that a lot better than anxiety? And she went, actually, yes, that was a lot better than anxiety. You see, answer to anxiety, have a good time. Have a good feeling.
Yeah, but the thing is, you got there, and this path, like you were primed to become enlightened. And this is something that
I'm not enlightened.
well, whatever, or to get to the level where you're at, I mean, you can get, like, again, you can give it any label, but we can feel it. Joe and I are listening to you, and I can listen to you all day, because you've hit something that you hit something, and there's no faking it. There's no, like, we just know it in our souls when we're listening to you, that you found something, that you unlocked something that about the human condition. And this is what I listen to when I listen to meditation. This is what, in a sense, the I, or the me, and all these is in a sense what got me into this, was this idea that there is this level of consciousness where I am open to this true self somehow. And this openness to this true self only really comes out when I'm able to get out of my own way, and I'm able to unlock these blockages that are there, or whatever. Again, the problem becomes this thing that I'm doing right now, this psychobabble way of explaining my situation. It's just like, it's already there, this sense of connectedness is there. It's just shut up and be there, and be in the moment.
Don't worry about you're not perfect, and don't worry that you're thinking,
Right.
because we're all doing it. You see, I'm not any different than you are. I'm not very upset about it.
Right. It's just, you're not so attached to the fact that yeah, exactly. It's just like, I just got my blue belt in jujitsu, and this is a perfect example for me, because I knew it was coming. Like, I knew that, like, after 3 years of being on the mats and working really hard and getting beat up, I knew that, like, the week was the appointment where our teacher was going to come to our school, and he's the guy that gives the belt out. So I was like, okay, I knew deep down, like, I'm probably going to get graduated, but I felt instantly this attachment to that, right? Like, I knew, like, I had an expectation somehow, and I knew that. I was like, oh God, here it goes. I'm going to be disappointed if I don't get a blue belt. And there's, like, this whole attachment thing happening. And even like 2 weeks ahead of time, I was like, oh, here. And I started to kind of just, every time it hit, it'd be like, oh, just let it go, man. Just let it go. That's not why you go to jujitsu. Like, the reason I go and do this activity is the social aspect of meeting with good friends, the physical aspect, the mental aspect. That's why I go. It doesn't matter what kind of belt I have. And it is just, and then it's like, okay, cool. That's where you're at. Good. Go back. And all the way up to the moment that he called my name and I went up and got my belt, I felt that, and I was just so conscious of it. I'm like, that's just amazing. As much as I know that it's all just crap, that I have this whole idea and this whole attachment to this graduation, because it's an ego thing, and it's with my other guys in the club, and they know, oh, he's going to have the blue belt, and now I have the white belt, and oh, whatever, like this whole ranking system and all of these pre-built things of, all of these hierarchies in your head, and all the attachment to it. It's just so deep. So, and I was just like almost laughing at myself. I was sweating at the moment, because we had just done like an hour and a half of training. So I was breathing. Then it's like, okay, are you going to get the blue belt? Are you going to get the blue belt? And I'm like, shut up. And then, I mean, I got it.
But can you see? You're already seeing it.
It's hilarious.
You're already seeing the answer.
Yeah, like, it's just
like, that's consciousness. That's a principle. Thought is a principle. Mind is a principle. Consciousness. Your consciousness is what's going to heal you.
Right.
By using that, it's the way I am. is already changing the way I am.
And the thing is, like, I have a tendency, also the very Western tendency, to, like, I love to go into this whole thing, like nutrition and all of these scientific things, like, well, okay, how much sleep? I listen to a neurologist. I love to listen to this guy Andrew Huberman going all into this whole neurological, and he can tell you like exactly what parts of the, what's happening chemically in your body. And then it's like, well, okay, I need to have sleep, I need to have exercise, and all these things I need to have first, right? It's kind of like the old thought process. It's like, I need to make sure that all of that stuff is level. Of course, if I have these things working, it's given my brain a better chance to be chemically balanced and have
Maybe, but why don't you just relax with the whole thing, and maybe that will work better.
right. And it's like, kind of, it could work that way too, right? Because you could get to this point where if like you said, you threw away 90% of all these bad things because
See,
it just dropped off.
The key to truth, the bottom line to truth, to understanding what is true, is you become a better human being. That's indigenous teaching. Your job is to become as good a human being as you possibly can be. And here's the joke. You can't do it mentally. So how can you do it? You cannot do it mentally to become a better human being. That's why divorces happen. The man or the woman tries to be a better partner. It doesn't work.
It's
It does not work. She'll say, do this, and you do it, and she didn't even care. Well, or you did it but didn't understand. Whatever. There's only one way you can have a good marriage. Be yourself. There's only one way you can become a better human being. Be yourself. There's only one way you can become a better host on Remington, whatever that last name is.
Yeah, exactly.
Be yourself.
Yeah.
And everything else is irrelevant. Because when you're yourself, you're inside. You're pure thought. You're not creating misconception, misbeliefs. I had a client, I said to him, he's a beautiful guy, but he wants to be more beautiful. And the purpose of life, I suppose, for some people. And I said to him, you have to find your level of consciousness, not higher. You can't pretend you're higher than you are. And you can't pretend you're lower than you are. You have to find exactly where you are. It requires honesty. And here's the joke. If you find that, if you uncover what you actually are without any dishonesty, and here's another joke. I don't care, any of you listeners, you know whether you're lying to yourself or not. You're bullshitting to yourself, or you're honest with yourself. You know.
Yeah.
And if you find that you can't see it with your intellect. Oh, I am this because I'm president of CEO of Mr. Multi-billion-dollar corporation. Of course, I'm totally insecure about everything. And every time anyone challenges me, I get angry, et cetera, because I'm so full of myself. You have to find, when you find your level of consciousness, you find the foundation for unlimited growth. Unlimited, because you're not pretending anymore. This is who I am. That's what I want to know. Who am I? What are my talents? What are my gifts? What are my mystical gifts? Not just money gifts, material gifts. What are my mystical? Some people have visions, are intuitive. When I stepped into the indigenous world, I found a lot of mystical gifts I had. I still use them in the white world, I just don't tell people because they can't understand that because
Yeah.
they're so blocked up in 1 + 1 = 2. Oh, 2 + 1. Oh, it's getting complicated. I can't. Oh, no. What do you mean unknown? Unknown? Well, I want known. Well, the known is the boring, retarded you.
Yeah.
The unknown is the unlimited thing that you actually want. You want to step beyond your present level of what you are because you've been so stupid that you've only realized 2% of your dreams.
So how does that work? Like how do people find you? No, I mean, just like this process, because you mentioned a couple of times that you've had clients and you guys are doing this thing. You have this fellowship. And so you have six of you that are working together.
We have a website. So acttraining.biz is my website. And on it is mental health transformations. You click on the button, it takes you to the website. We have lots of talks. We might put this one on, who knows, and we have writings, testimonies, etc., etc. And how do people contact me? The way you might contact me. Now that it's on the show and you go, shit, this guy wouldn't be a bad guy to help. And I'm not a guy who cares about money. Do you know what I charge? I do a lot of pro bono. And when someone wants to pay, and sometimes people are uncomfortable not paying, I say, you pick the fee.
Yeah.
That's how much I charge.
That's nice.
You pick the fee. Because if let's say they're broke, well, I don't want to bankrupt them to help them to be happy.
Yeah.
And let's say they're rich. Well, they have a high self-worth. They want to pay a lot of more money. That's how it works. But the answer is, we're here to help. That's the answer.
Yeah.
And people come to me because they like the way I share. Joe, how did you come to me?
Yeah.
Well, I had my kind of own awakening experience, and it felt quite indigenous. And I was on like some Free Principles Facebook groups, and then this advert came up for a webinar on Free Principles from an indigenous perspective. And so I wanted to go on there just because I wanted to ask this question to some indigenous people, and I did. And Harry was on there as well, hosting, and he heard what I said, and he because I'd seen it in a negative way, and he told me, in kind of like a Western diagnosis way, and he told me that actually it was spiritual gifts, and
it was beautiful. Something beautiful happened, and he had misinterpreted it as negative.
Right. Okay. Can you explain that? Can you give us a little bit of a taste of that? So,
yeah.
Because when you say indigenous, I'm thinking to myself like, cool. So it was just, what was the experience? How did it hit you? Did it just, one of these typical like Kohan things where it just kind of like the sandal hits you across the face and you're boom, like what was that? Or?
Yeah. I mean, I was getting really anxious about an obsession when I woke up, and then it felt like this voice came up from inside me. And then for about, I would guess probably 5-6 seconds, it just felt this pure love energy was going into me. It was like the most beautiful experience I'd ever had. And I kind of went to sleep. And then when I woke up, it felt like someone had put their foot down on the gas pedal, and my mind was just running so fast. But I was getting all these kind of like insights really fast flying in. And then it just felt like my consciousness had gone into the universe, and I wasn't here in like the physical, I was out in the universe. And I kind of felt like I wanted to ask, is that what they meant by spirit walking? Because it felt like that. But it felt kind of like a negative thing had happened to me, and I kind of got quite scared by it. And so that was why I wanted to ask about it. And then that was why I went on there. And then Harry said it was kind of a spiritual gift that you're opening up to.
So your initial reaction was like, I lost my mind.
Yeah, it was. Well, it kind of felt like I was disappearing into the universe. Like my consciousness was just leaving me, sort of.
Like bye bye world.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's like yeah, because it's just so real in that moment. You're like, something's wrong with me. I'm I'm mentally exiting this physical materialistic world that we're living in, and Harry was like, this is good. Like you just had a moment there.
You went deeper inside.
Yeah,
So you misinterpreted.
sure. I mean, and that's what's nice to have a teacher that can see it for what it is, right? This is something that you always hear over and over again. I hear this in all of these different meditations that I do and I listen to, and it's like, well, gosh, it's so nice to have a perspective of like, lean into that and follow that, and like you said, when you had this awakening moment, you weren't really Harry now. You weren't really ready for it either. You said you were still there was still like a period of time where you were not still battling with the
Yeah, I
thoughts and
did.
stuff.
Well, I had a oneness experience that proved to me that life is spiritual. After that, any problem, anything that I experienced, I knew it was still spiritual. However, it didn't give me the psychological ups and downs of day-to-day answer. I was still thinking that the outside was controlling me. And when I had this boomerang experience, I suddenly realized, who's the thinker? Like, who's causing all the, if it's just a feeling that's boomeranging from a thought of mine, and that's all suffering, all that psychological, emotional reaction is, well, it's just common sense that it wasn't stuff outside of me that was causing me to feel uncomfortable.
I'm going to throw, oh, sorry, go ahead, please.
And when that meant that could settle down, I could soar into the oneness, into the spiritual a lot easier. You see, the problem was I was uncomfortable in the physical world, in the day-to-day emotional ups and downs, the moment-to-moment experience of thought. I was being a victim of my own thinking. And then when the understanding came, that quieted down. And the moment it quieted down, then the powerful oneness experience, I could go deeper and deeper and deeper into the unknown. And it turns out Harry Durbitsky is very good at soaring when he's not thinking.
Yeah, and it's interesting how I wrote down on my little piece of paper here when you're talking about that. It kind of reminded me about something that free will. What do you guys think about? What do you guys think about free will?
Oh, that's a big. I have a good answer for that, but Joe, I've talked a lot, Joe. Let's get the Joe professor. Joe's a professor of sorts, and go ahead, Joe. You do the free will one. It's such an easy topic; you won't have any trouble.
Okay.
Yeah, the way I see it is, when people talk about free will, and I was talking to someone yesterday, is it's one of them kind of, you could call it a paradox, in that there is and there isn't. In that, when you're kind of a low level of consciousness, it's like you're in the dream. And when you're in the dream, you have no control of the dream and what you're doing in the dream. And you kind of experience it. But then as you grow, you kind of become more and more aware. And then it's kind of like the next level is just kind of realizing that your thoughts are not controlling you, and you can kind of see the thoughts. And then as you grow more, you kind of see that actually the spirit or the kind of soul behind you is kind of, you're creating your life through that, and that actually everything that happens in your life is kind of bringing you to the point where you're supposed to be. And then you kind of have the free will to follow your intuition, or would be another word for kind of your spiritual self, or you can go against that and try and control and fight it, and then you cause disharmony. And so there's different levels of it, really. And then kind of the highest level is you realize who you are, and then you surrender to it and let it guide you. And so there's always a free will within that, but it's not so much the free will of what the world thinks of the free will of just like, I can choose this day to day sort of thing.
I can force myself to be rich.
Yeah, or I can force myself out of these thoughts, or I can force myself to be happy, or I can force myself to be well.
I will not be addicted anymore. I am free of it if I just can hold on to that discipline and force myself not to think in any other. Oh, I gotta have it. No, I give up.
Yeah, that whole contraction of it is just, it defeats the purpose, right? It just creates even more separation somehow.
No, tough, soft.
Yeah.
Love, with love. Treat it all with love.
There you go. That's free will.
Yeah.
Love every moment of your life, not because you're supposed to, because that's the truth. And you sometimes think your way out of that, or a lot of times think your way out of it. But if you listen to what Joe was talking about, he explained every day he goes up and down. That's levels of consciousness, lower and higher moods. Everybody is schizophrenic. Everybody goes up and down every day. Just that some people, I have a colleague or a client, very wise, but right now he believes he's in a low level of consciousness. He is, because he believes it, but he isn't. He's going through a spiritual experience to open up to the fact that he cannot control the world.
Right. There you go.
It's so simple.
Yeah,
he's stuck. He's stuck in a bullshit thought.
I could totally relate to that though. I had probably like 2 months ago, I was just on it, and it's like, I have an attachment to how free I was. You know what I mean? It's like, I was there. I was like, God, this is it. I'm in the flow of it. I'm like, everything's
right. That's right. And welcome. We all have experienced exactly that.
Right.
Joe certainly has.
And then it's like, and then life is life. And it just, I feel like I'm like that airplane that's not on its path anymore. It just, like, the hurricane threw me over here, and I'm like, well, here I am again. And I was there, and it's like, I see that. And then it's like that struggle is the problem, right? That discontentment with knowing that I've been more awakened at a certain point in my life, and this attachment to that whole thing, and it just turns into, you're right. It's like, okay, all right, I get it, man. This is all just a joke. Like, it's all just a joke on Remington right now. So let's do this,
Yeah, the joke is on you.
Yeah, the joke is on me, exactly. And it's so true. But it doesn't take away from the fact that is exactly the reality in the moment too. Is that it's just that the more that I'm attached to that, the further away I am from coming back to some place of openness and yeah, letting go of whatever it is that I need to let go of. Maybe even I can't even, you won't even find it unless you're willing to just accept it for what it is, right? You're not going to find this thing that threw you off, or this thing that was inside you that was triggered, or this life.
No, what you'll find is, see, the indigenous have a beautiful saying. Psychology is like 10th cause, and sometimes they go 9th cause. And they say, well, that's deeper than 10th cause, like trauma. Okay. It's better to see yourself that you had trauma caused the addiction rather than you got to solve the addiction. It isn't. It's just the indigenous have the answer. First cause, that's where the answer is. And you know what first cause is? What have we been talking about, Remington? what was my experience about? What was the word we used? First cause.
Thoughts.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's the reality.
Yeah.
That boomerang just rang around a little too often.
Yeah.
Creating a bad feeling, and you're wired to solve your bad feeling with a
Follow
good
this.
feeling.
Right.
And so you reach for a drink or a fentanyl or or whatever, codeine or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And your you start to train your brain. Oh, this is what gives you the good feeling. And you worship it. You follow it. And then one day you go, oh, I got a bad habit. I don't like it anymore.
Yeah.
Some people just say, that's it. My grandfather spoke, and smoking, by the way, cigarettes is harder to break than heroin. So
Right.
no simple piece of cake to get off cigarette. My grandfather smoked 5 packs a day. And at 66, the doctor said to him, well, Max, either you quit smoking or you're going to be dead in 6 months. Your whole stomach is tarred. Never had another smoke. Within 2 weeks, that bad cough, that hacker's cough that they used to have, gone. I looked at that and says, yuck, I'm never smoking cigarettes. This is stuff. But he just cold turkey.
Yeah.
Some people, my mother did that. She was she was diagnosed with schizophrenia and bipolar, schizophrenic and bipolar. The reality was she had a third kid and she took too much drugs to keep you thin. She had put on too much weight, so she just really threw in that reduction stuff, and it put her off balance. They totally blew the analysis because they don't know what they're talking about. And then at 65, she's from 43 to 65, she's on the heavy drugs, and then she informs everybody that she's not taking them anymore. My dad, the whole family, only I supported her, but it was still her decision. The doctor, the fool, of course, the idiot, was berserk because he diagnosed and had. Of course, the reality is she lived to 95. She would have been dead at 75.
Yeah.
With the drugs and a veggie, and she was no veggie. This woman was. She saw.
Yeah.
The
It's
drugs.
how resilient the body is after all of that abuse that it still can be.
And it took years for the drugs to clean out.
Right.
It wasn't just the mental, the power. You see, we have power, unlimited power inside of us. You can change your mind anytime you want.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. What do you guys think about all this other stuff though? Like this, I mean, like now here am I. What are your thoughts?
And if elected, I will not run. Oh, sorry. Excuse me.
No, it's okay. I wonder now because what are your guys' habits? Like, how does your day go? Like, do you get up in the morning? Is water for you? Do you sleep a lot? Do you exercise? Do you do all these things? Is this something that comes automatically for you because it's just good for you, right? You said being a good human is part of this, is actually taking care of myself. I have to be proactive about my health. I know my doctors, most of them aren't going to help you there either. They're just going to prescribe you something. So how do you guys attack that side, that vector of this, of mental health?
Sense. Your body is the boss. Your body, you're your own doctor. Your body tells you what it needs and what it doesn't like. Yeah. So, when you don't do enough exercise, you get fat.
And
when
you don't feel
fat,
good.
You don't feel as good as when you're trim. Yeah. So, so you do what works for you. But what really works for me is the first thing is no stress. I don't like stress.
Right.
Okay. I like tennis. I'm
Cool.
75, but I just played with my son, and who's 33 and runs like the wind for an hour and a half.
Nice.
And he knew he was playing this was no old man against the young guy type of thing. But it's very good for me for stress. For me, physically, I need a certain amount of physical activity. But I like to get up in the morning, have a coffee. I like to putter around in the garden. I wake up when I wake up. And generally speaking, Europe is in the morning. But I don't want to have more than 1 or 2 calls in the day, because I don't like getting too wrapped up in all of that stuff. Joe and I just spent the summer doing the video. If people want to hear about our group, Joe and I created this 5-minute video and 30-minute video, which they can see about the 6 people all talking. Joe was brilliant in what he created, but it was a work in progress. I would say, Joe, can you do this? He'd go, oh, I'm not a technical person. I can't do that type of stuff. And then 2 minutes later, he'd go, I got it. And then then we just kept evolving until we got it to a level that we thought people would watch. The 5-minute is for the people with the limit, because people have limited attention spans, etc. And then some people want to listen to it a little deeper. And on it is Joe. And he's sharing, and the others are sharing. And I want to emphasize something that we haven't talked about. Each member shares totally different. Would you agree, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of what came to me is the way I saw it was like God sings a different song for each person. But each song comes from the same note, isn't it? Which is silence.
Yeah, each person sounds different. One guy's has a PhD in physics and quantum physics and stuff. So he talks about oneness from a professional perspective, and then the lady, she soars, and then we have a guy who is always in his bed, and he talks about the spiritual reality of life through thought and all this stuff. They're all different. None of them sound alike. None of them sound like me. And here's my main message, Remington. Don't listen to me.
Yeah, right.
Don't follow
nice
my words.
Yeah, but you have a nice flow. I like that. I like that. I think that, I can open myself up to you. I feel like I can listen to you and you're not giving me damaging ideas here. So it's,
yeah, let me talk to that. As soon as you came on, I could see this openness in you. Like, I know I am an easy guy. Nobody has dealt with more diverse groups than I have in the world. Nobody has talked to. I'm doing right now, Tawhid, spiritual unity of the 3 principles in the Muslim community.
Right on.
Yeah. Am I a Muslim? No. I'm a lead, seen as a lead spiritual person in the indigenous world. Am I indigenous? No. Addiction. I'm an expert in addiction. Have I ever been addicted? No. Have I ever been mentally diagnosed as ill? No. It's just all the, but you had an openness. And that openness has allowed us to dance together.
Yeah, that's what I love about this. And I feel like the more that I come to this like that, the more, you're right. It's just, you have to be willing to share, and to be honest with yourself. I love that about the podcast too. This it's like a time for self-reflection, and I'm getting a free therapy session here. I'm able to talk about my emotions, my feelings, and then connect with you guys about what your stories are, and the side effect that if one person listens to this and gets something good out of it, then that's
it's a bullseye.
It's great. It's fantastic.
Yeah, one person. That's all.
Yeah, like you said, this
Change
drop
the
in the
vibration
ocean.
of the whole world.
But you're saying about your body as well. I mean, the way I like to see it is like your body's kind of like your first pet, and your first pet you love,
Respect.
and you want to treat it well, don't you? And you want it to be happy,
Right.
and so yeah, you care for it as well. And
Yeah, it's very true.
Your
That's
first
very
pet.
true. And
Yeah.
there's too much needless suffering out there.
No.
And in the mental health field, or they're becoming, a lot of the people are aware, they want to give up the suffering, but they just don't know where to go.
Right. I mean, where do you go? It's not easy. And especially
Well,
you're in this you're in a compromised mental state and you're supposed to look out for yourself. Like, good luck. If you don't have someone that's on your side saying, hey, check this out, or, thank God that we have Facebook and these groups and you can go in there, and you went out and you searched for like this question, like, am I losing my mind, Joe? And it's like fantastic that Harry is there waiting to pick you up where you're at. Right. That's such a cool, and I feel like the universe is working that way for you too. I feel like this conversation today, it's so interesting to me because I've had like this rotating thought. I said that before we got online to you, Harry, that about how this podcast can grow in a sense, and in a sense, the network that I've created with the different people I've talked to can be somehow curated, similar to what you guys have already done. And it's like, okay, this is me just thinking about, it's me thinking too much again. But then we get online and it's almost like the universe is like, here, these guys have done it. So just check out what they're doing and listen to them and see how they've done it. And I didn't even, I mean, in a sense, I asked for that without knowing it, right? Because I'm asking these questions like, how do I do it? And here I am talking to two people that are doing it. It's such a manifestation, I guess, in that sense.
It is, but it's such an honor. Like we feel so lucky. I feel so lucky because 8 months ago, it was just two people.
Yeah.
And I was just helping these two people.
Right.
And they were loving it. And then Joe described this, and then I asked him to join the group.
Yeah.
And then he said, oh, I have the Phoenix users group. You can come and talk to them. And all of a sudden I saw a vision. Oh, we could go around talking to people,
yeah,
using the power of their stories rather than my wisdom.
Right.
Because the world will listen to stories, not my wisdom. And then before we knew it, we had 6. So we went from 2, and then Joe came in as a buzzsaw. And then we had 3, and then within a matter of moments, we had 6. And all of them were fantastic. That's nice. And all from England, except from one from Croatia.
Oh, Croatia. Cool.
Yeah. And I had helped the guy from Croatia a year before, and he was nowhere. And he says, he heard about this group, and he says, I'd like to join it. Well, I'm the one who picks, and I said, no, this guy's definitely not joining the group. But I have to be nice. I don't want to tell him he's full of nothing. So I says, so I got on. He had changed. He jumped to it. It took him the year from. See, that's the beauty of truth. What you are doesn't matter.
Right.
Where you're going is what matters.
That's what you meant by this positive thinking. There's this looking forward, right? And it's right there. So there's no rule of saying you don't have to. It's not like with jiu-jitsu.
And you just don't know who will grow.
And yeah, and if
that Joe is not the same person he was when he came to the group. He's just a totally different person. He hasn't fully seen it yet, but he is a totally different. And people are telling him that, and he likes that. He likes receiving compliments, yeah, type of thing, right, Joe?
Yeah, but you still have to watch the game of the ego though, because that will kind of get back in again and start feeding itself. And
yeah, of course, we all have that problem. But the growth. So we all started to help each other. You see the vibration of it, because I'm not into controlling the group. Because listen, Remington, I can't.
Yeah.
And this show, the only reason we're on this show is because of Joe. The only reason.
Yeah.
I let Joe do all of that type of stuff. And at first I thought, oh, Jesus, that looks like a lot of work doing all these shows. I'm into play tennis.
Yeah.
But then I said, well, if God is presenting opportunities to share, who am I to say, I'm a little busy here or there? You know,
Yeah,
why
that's
don't I just say yes? And that's a higher level of consciousness. Lower levels, lots of no. You can't do this. No, no, no. Higher level, spirit presents. Yes, you accept. This second book I wrote on addiction is only 2 years after I wrote my first book. A spirit said to me, you have to write another book. I'm not going to get into that concept. And I went, oh, come on. I just
got done with that one.
Yeah, and I don't even have a thought about a new book. But I listened. I said yes. And guess what happened? The second book is way deeper than the first. And you have to buy one, Remington.
Okay.
It's called Evolution of Addiction Recovery Reopened, Book 2 from Amazon. Okay. I want you to buy it. That's what I'm charging you for coming on your show.
Yeah, right. All right. I buy your book.
Yeah, you buy the book and read it. Oh, you don't just buy it.
I have to read it too. Yeah.
You'll learn, because the book is not about addiction. You know what it's about? Happiness and contentment. That's the answer to addiction, happiness. So it talks about, that's the book. If you want to be happy and content, my book will help you. Guaranteed. Something will resonate within you that will teach you, oh, I've been thinking too much.
Yeah. That's
I'm a little bit self-centered. Oh, yeah. I have dreams and aspirations. What are they? Yeah. Oh, Harry seems to say these 3 spiritual principles bulletproof me against all suffering. Oh, bulletproof. I like bulletproof, meaning I don't have to needlessly suffer with my old bad habits, but just by understanding these 3 formless spiritual principles, which happen to be 3 spiritual principles. They're the trinity of psychology. See, Christ came up with the trinity of religion: Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Sydney Banks came up with the spiritual trinity of psychology: mind, thought, and consciousness. I'm not saying it. He didn't discover them. He uncovered them when he had his enlightenment experience, because the world has gotten into a psychological mess and needs psychological answers. And I'm sorry, folks, it doesn't lie in the past. It lies in the silence of the unknown. You have to go into the formless energy of who you are to find the answer. It does not come through information, drugs, effort, etc.
It's inside.
It's a no willpower approach. And it is saying you are already healthy. I hate to tell you this, you're just pretending to be sick. I know it looks pretty serious, but you're like a kid. You're in a nightmare. Ooh. You wake up and the kid said, Daddy, Daddy, I just peed my pants. Oh, oh. Daddy cleans your pants up, and then you go, Daddy, can I have a sucker now? I like that candy. Oh, okay, son, because you just peed your pants, I'll give you a sucker.
Yeah, right.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
And that's who you are. You're no different than your son. Hard to get up at 9 o'clock. Well, you're doing the same thing in your own way.
Yeah, I mean, the kids are great for that. They definitely show you exactly what they're just a mirror in that sense.
That's right.
And
And all Joe realized was he wasn't the loser.
yeah,
You know, John, the first guy, we would get together. This is the last story because I got to go to bed. It's
yeah,
2
right.
o'clock
It's like 2 in the
2
morning.
o'clock in the morning here, you bugger. So,
Right.
so John, this is a true story. John has all the bipolar, the schizophrenia, been in psychiatric hospitals, in and out, the whole works, the whole gamut, and pain, lots of pain, physical pain and stuff. And we'd get together and we would just soar. And I loved hanging out with this guy because he was a Christian, but he wasn't religious. He understood the essence of Christianity, of Christ's words. And so we would soar like crazy. We'd have the best time for an hour and a half. And but the problem was, then he would go back into his thoughts and think, well, I'm a loser.
Yeah.
And so we soar. And then I go to him and I said to him, do you realize how beautiful you are? I just whispered it to him. He had never thought about that.
Yeah.
Like he'd been so full of loser, pass, loser, label. Beautiful. And I do this quite well because it's true. For 2 minutes, he went like this.
Come on.
Could not accept the fact that he is beautiful. And then after 2 minutes, a big smile came on his face and he got it. He is beautiful. And all the bullshit that psychiatrists and all the people talking to him about the past and the seriousness wasn't doing him a bit of good. All they were doing was hurting him. Innocently. I want to
sure, yeah, but it's reinforcing these labels, and
yeah, and he was free.
Yeah.
Does it mean he doesn't go up and down still?
Sure.
No,
Sure.
And in fact, right now he has a tremendous amount of physical pain, but he's experiencing it through his spiritual wisdom that he's beautiful. Yeah. You see, he didn't end up losing all his physical pain. The same for Joe. Joe had a problem with his mother and it bummed him out for a little while, but it didn't bum him out like it bummed him out before.
There's like a level of equanimity there somewhere. It's like a little level of like seeing it for what it really is. Like,
that's right. And also seeing, he's getting a little trapped in what he thinks is right and wrong. That word you used, attachment.
Yeah.
Yuck. So, and then he breaks free of that. And hopefully he learns something. But if he didn't, he'll have to go through it again.
Right.
Because that's the way it works. If you don't get it the first time, God doesn't mind. God's very patient.
Time, huh? Yeah.
Lots of time. He'll just say again, Joe, could you bend down again? Joe
Here we
says,
go.
What's God pointing to? Oh boy,
Boom.
that hurt. Yeah, gee, that hurt. Okay, I got it this time, God. And then God says, I don't think so.
Yeah.
And then, and you got to experience it. So we're just losing our attachment. Just the wisdom that you said. I did not say that. You said it. You have to realize your own wisdom, Remington.
Yeah.
when you listen to this talk again,
I'm going to do that.
I
Yeah.
want you to listen to your wisdom. Don't listen to yourself like as a third person,
Mhm.
not Harry, not Joe, but Remington. And you'll say, actually, that was pretty cool what I said.
Yeah, right. That's I laugh because it's just so uncomfortable to even think that, that you like this.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable until you realize that's the truth. And that's the truth, is that you have wisdom always accessible at any moment in time. If you could just shut up for once in your life.
Right.
Excuse the expression.
No, it's totally, I get it. Exactly.
Yeah. And what happens is you become a better human being. And that is a very beautiful thing. Your kids like you, your wife likes you better, your bosses like you better, your friends like you better. And more important than all of that, you like yourself better. That's a beautiful state of mind to be in, loving yourself. I am a character, a unique character, but I love myself.
It's very nice.
Joe loves himself more than he loved himself last year. Check mark. And that's what it's about. Check mark. He loves himself more than he loved himself last year. And the insight that he had that I shared with him, yes, it's true that only I would have seen that. Perhaps the only person in the world who could see that. But he heard it.
Yeah, he was ready for it.
He's ready for it, and he heard it. So it was, yes, but I've said that type of wisdom to many people. Nada. But Joe, he's a smart cookie. He may not look smart, but he's a smart cookie.
Yeah.
He is. He's highly intelligent and a pleasure to work with. Really neat to work with.
Oh, I'm really
Very
glad.
interesting mind. And please, people, anyone who listens, take a look at the 5-minute video that we have, a preview. And then if you like it, you can listen to the half-hour one. And on it is all 6 people sharing their unique perception and wisdom about the truth.
Very nice. Maybe I'll stay on with Joe afterwards just to get the details of everything so I can put it in the links of the show.
Sure, it sounds. I'm going to bed. It's
Thank
2
you very
o'clock.
much.
I have. Yeah. It's nice talking to you, Joe. We'll see you on Saturday. We have another show on Saturday. So we'll see you on that. Actually, 4 of us are going to be on that one. Okay. Hasta la vista, amigo. Very nice sharing with you, Remington.
Very nice.
And good night, Harry.
Good night. Bye-bye.